Oh, thank you so much to the Professor. We're going to continue exactly on that same vein now, continuing with our health discussion on strokes as we observe World Stroke Day this week. And we've got Lutfia Vayej, Executive for Marketing and Communication, but also a wife of a stroke survivor, her husband Ishmael. Now she joins us to share their personal journey together. And I think a stroke not only affects the survivor, but obviously it's known to have a significant impact on the entire family, especially a partner. Lutfia talks to us about what it has been like to care for a loved one after a stroke. Lutfia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Graham.
It's difficult to know where to begin because I can't escape thinking about how difficult this journey must have been, terrifying at times, especially in that moment. 2 strokes then adds a whole different level of trauma to that, both physical and emotional. Were you with him when the first stroke happened?
No, actually on both occasions, he was on his own.
Oh, wow.
But the first time he was out driving and he never came home the afternoon. And we kind of wondered what happened to him, searched around, phoned around, and at past 6 in the evening, he phoned to say he's in the hospital. We rushed to the hospital and they told us that he had a mild stroke at the time.
Mild stroke,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So
then we fast forward to a second stroke.
4 months later. During that time, he had rehabilitation, and because it was a mild stroke, he could easily go for therapy, and the therapy kicked in quite well. And 4 months later, he was at home by himself, and he suffered another stroke. Phoned his brother, said, "Look, I'm not feeling good. I think I need to get to a hospital." Got to the hospital. I got there, they prepared him for a scan, they had to do a scan, and during that time, what they call an extended stroke, and that was the big one. And when he came out, he ended up in ICU with no speech, not able to walk, not able to do anything for himself. And that was 7 years ago. 7
years ago. I can only connect with you on an emotional level because I'm thinking about what it would be like to go through that process, but then every one of your worst fears coming to bear.
I know.
Where are we now? How much of the physical knock-on effect are you still feeling, and what has that journey of rehabilitation been like?
So he started off by spending 3 months at the Stroke and Rehabilitation Centre, which is associated with the hospital. And during that time, he had physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy. And after 3 months, he was discharged and he came home. And that was a massive adjustment, as you can imagine, because we had to get used to having him around and also to accommodate his needs. And obviously he had to get used to being a different him at home. So that was a very big challenge. And he is in a wheelchair. He now has a full-time carer at home who lives with us. And he's not able to, he's lost his speech, he's locked in. But he hasn't lost his mental faculties, so he's still very much with us, but he's just not able to talk. And about 5 years ago, for 5 years, he wasn't able to eat. So we fed him through a tube in his stomach, okay? And as I said, he's still in a wheelchair, and he gets physio at home, he gets occupational therapy at home, and speech and language therapy. And so there has been improvement physically. He's able to take a couple of steps. He's able to help himself a little bit, okay, like hold a spoon to try to feed himself. He's able to use the remote control of the TV, so he spends a lot of time.
And that might sound like a small thing, but having dealt with a lot of people in this neuroscience space, it's a massive thing because it suddenly opens a gateway into a whole other world.
Completely. And look, the first thing that we had to do was to try to understand what a stroke is, what's going on here, because it's a huge knock, you know, for the family, for the children.
How did you manage that transition? Because as you say, he is still the same man. So much has changed, but locked inside that physical experience of this is the same man mentally. How have you been able to support him? What did you say to him? How did you, were you able to connect with him initially? What was that part of this transition
Well,
like?
you know, the fact that he could understand what we were saying. He, you know, he could hear, and I created little boards with words on it and alphabet on it to help him to try to understand. And at the time when he was in hospital, he couldn't use both arms. So he used his feet. and he would tap on the letters of the alphabet on the words, and that's how we started to communicate. When he came home and with physio, he's able to point a finger. So we kind of hold words, the board with the alphabet, and he points to it. And we have an app that he uses. So he's able to type out a couple of words and the app repeats what he says, okay? But you know, after 7 years, we understand an eye movement. We understand a head movement, a nod. And it's amazing how we communicate. We can have full-on speeches and we communicate, but we have to understand what he's going through. It also goes with a lot of respect, because imagine Graham being locked in for 7 years and not able to say things.
I can't.
But it takes a lot of bravery. It takes a tremendous amount of courage. And if you see his determination to keep on keeping on, it inspires you as the carer, as the family, to assist him. So.
Are you angry? Do you feel blessed to still have him here with you? How have you been able to wrap your own head around what's happened? Because it's happened to you as much as it's happened to him. This is a shared
experience. The
experience.
first year wasn't easy at all, because you know, when people go to hospital, they either go to get they go to get better and they come home, or they go and unfortunately they pass away. Okay, he went in for 3 months, he came out, and that's it. All right, so you have to kind of cope with that. So you kind of want to, so when is this going to end? All right, when is it, how many more months to go? It's just that kind of thing.
Snap back, yeah.
And so with education and talking to people and finding out about it, you realize that every single person is different. They cope differently, the experience has been different, the impact of the stroke has been very different. And so the first year was a massive emotional roller coaster. But we actually believe that this is a blessing for us. Okay, it really is, because we've learned so much about each other, about a family unit, and about our own strength.
You know just how deep that reservoir is.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word cope. Maybe we can leave families, partners, and maybe even those that are suffering from a stroke and dealing with exactly what you've had to deal with. What were those coping mechanisms? How have you as a family been able to deal with what you've gone through? Because this is something quite intense. And
well, just to get through one day at a time, firstly, because when it happened, the thought of what's going to happen in 2 months' time or 2 weeks' time, that was just too much. So we just got through one day at a time, and we still do, because we still have wobblies and hiccups along the way, and we see through the day, all right? And also coping with talking about it, okay? Being open and not sitting and stressing over things, you know, just talk about it. Coping by reading about it, by informing yourself about it, by, you know, just trying to understand what the person is going through. So there's various coping mechanisms in place. You know, you've got to just dig deep.
Just take it step by step.
So one day at a time.
Well, thank you for being brave enough to open this conversation up on this platform, because I know there are a lot of, judging by the numbers that I've been presented with today, there are so many people going through what you are going through right now. So thank you for sharing this. Please pass our best on to Ishmael as well, and the rest of your family, for being brave enough to share what must have been a very, very difficult, but it sounds like also inspirational journey. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I've taken a huge amount from this, and hopefully this adds new relevance to you at home about why it's so important for us to raise awareness around strokes and staying as healthy as we possibly can, but just knowing those warning signs and what to do if we do go through this. You're not alone, and certainly if you're suffering from a stroke, you are not alone. There is support and help out there, and hopefully this has helped to educate you in just a little way.